Hello, friends. It is December 20th, and today we're going to talk about a man named Nicholas, later named Saint Nicholas. Now, Nicholas was born in what is now modern-day Turkey in the 4th century. And a few interesting things about Nicholas. Nicholas was very wealthy. His parents had an incredible amount of money, and when they died, they bequeathed it to him. It was in his inheritance, and so he was known to be very, very rich. I won't say fabulously rich, but he was very, very wealthy. That's one thing. His Christian faith, the man had faith. And anybody who had Christian faith, most anybody who had Christian faith at that time, they took it very seriously because that faith could get them tortured. That faith could get them killed. And St. Nicholas, as a matter of fact, was tortured several times because of his faith, because he would not recount, because he confessed Jesus Christ. And so his faith, he had enough faith, and it grounded him in such a way that he had a lot of perseverance in order to be able to cope with kind of the secular world around him. He was very good with people as well, and he was also very generous with his money. But he was a humble man. He was a pious man. So when he was generous, he tried to keep it secret. He heard the plight of one man. A man had 3 daughters. He was in debt himself. The daughters wanted to be married, but they didn't have the requisite money for the wedding or the bride price or whatever the custom was in those days. And so the daughters were going to be sold off as slaves to satisfy the man's debt. And so Nicholas, he wants to help, but again, he wants to do so anonymously. So he kind of scopes out the house, and then when nobody's around, he goes up to the window to leave some money, and he sees that the girls have put their stockings there in order to dry the outside air. And so he deposits a gold coin into one into each set of stockings, and he leaves. And he later learns that the gold had its desired effect, that the man was out of debt, that all 3 daughters were going to be able to have a wedding and get married. And so it was wonderful. But naturally, word of things like this traveled fast. And it did travel fast. And some people must put it together that it was Nicholas who had done it. And in their defense, Nicholas, this wasn't the first time it had happened. Nicholas would occasionally drop gold through a window of somebody who was in badly need. Occasionally, he even did it through a chimney. Again, trying to stay anonymous, but try as he might, people at some point figured out who it was. And so that was kind of the life of Nicholas, but something happened. Christianity was declared legal, and because of his faith, because of his position as a bishop, he'd been elevated in the church as a leader. He was invited to the Council of Nicaea. Now, Nicaea was most notable for its conflict between, I won't get into all of that, but basically there was a debate about the nature of Christ. Nicholas believed that Jesus was the only begotten Son of God, through whom all things were made, and was of the same essence of the Father. This is what the vast majority of Christians believe today. But there was another man named Arius, and Arius thought that the Son was created. He had this slogan, "There was when he was not." And so during the debate, Arius flat out says that Jesus is not God. And for a man that's been tortured for his faith, for saying that Jesus is God and putting his life on the line, that didn't go well. So Nicholas gets so angry, he rushes over to where Arius is speaking and just punches him hard on the right in the face, and Arius just goes down. He was very he was very fervent in his belief. Ultimately, Arius loses the debate, although that is a long story, and Nicholas is vindicated, if not for what he did, but for at least his faith. And so that's kind of the story in a nutshell of Nicholas, who he was, what his actions were. And after he died, the church designated December 6th to remember his generous giving and how hard he fought to keep the correct interpretation of Scripture. And to celebrate December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, they imitated him by giving gifts to one another, sometimes anonymously. His story was told to children as a way of teaching them to be kind and to be generous with what they had to one another. And so this nice story traveled everywhere, but it became very popular in Germany and also with the Dutch. But as stories do, they grew, and in the medieval era, it grew, and honestly, it got a little weird, as did a lot of Christian things during that time. It got conflated with the story of Jesus coming on a white horse. You might remember that from Revelation, that Jesus comes on a white horse. The book of Revelation also talks about the book of life. And the story those elements began to conflate with the story of St. Nicholas, and it began to be said that St. Nicholas would make the rounds once a year on St. Nicholas Day on a white horse, making notes in the book of life and reporting back to Jesus. But when the story reached Norway, that didn't resonate because they didn't have horses there. So it was changed from a horse to a reindeer. And you don't ride a reindeer, so all of a sudden it was St. Nicholas being in a sled with the book, taking notes, and the sled was pulled by a reindeer. When the story ended up being transplanted to the American colonies through the Dutch and German migration, St. Nicholas Day, December the 6th, and Christmas, December the 25th, they seem to kind of merge over time and become one and the same. Now, St. Nicholas wasn't well known at all in the northern United States, but he became very popular in the southern United States, late 1700s and first half of the 1800s. But when the American speakers, southern American speakers, tried to pronounce St. Nicholas as the Germans pronounced it with their accent, it ended up sounding a lot like Santa Claus. Now, St. Nicholas became pretty mainstream in the United States during the Civil War. The North made a propaganda poster using St. Nicholas, and St. Nicholas was in this poster hanging out with Northern soldiers. And in essence, the design of this poster was to tell the South that their guy, because he wasn't really celebrated in the North, was actually supported the Union cause. But Northerners didn't understand the poster, so it had to be explained to them. And so by the end of the Civil War, St. Nicholas is popular in the North as well as the South, and he's not so much known as St. Nicholas, but as Santa Claus. But the Santa Claus that we envision today, at least in terms of visuals, comes from an early Coca-Cola campaign. The red, he's all dressed in red, as a bishop of the 4th century probably would be. But the big belly, the white cuffs, the rosy cheeks, that was a creation of the artists of Coca-Cola when they first used Santa Claus to advertise their product. And that long story is kind of the origin of many of the things that you and I associate with Santa Claus this Christmas season. But I want to say this. At the beginning, it was about a man who was guided by fervent faith to be compassionate with his wealth, that was guided to persevere under torture and to stand up for Scripture. And that is a good reminder not to forget the important things this season. Take care.